Okay, there's a lot to unpack in this, so let's break it down. The British Empire created global racial hierarchy, enforced systems of segregation, resource extraction, and settler colonialism. From Ireland to India, from Palestine to Kenya. They trained local elites to uphold the imperial order long after independence. This unipolar structure frames the West as the civilized center, and all other nations are clients or colonies or enemies. Invented by Zionists. The modern settler colonial Zionism did not invent colonialism. It adopted it. It replicated the structure from the British imperial machine. In 1917, Arthur Balfour, a British imperialist and a Protestant supremacist, granted Palestine to the Zionist movement, not for Jewish liberation, but to secure a British strategic control centre in the Middle East. Zionism, in its state-building capacity, was another British colonial settler project. Exactly the same as what they did in Ireland, as what they did in Kenya and Africa, as what they did in North America. Its roots are in Ukraine. So this is conflating the origin of Zionism with British settler colonialism. And this is where we really need to detach it from the Jews, because Ukraine is the traditional homeland of the Ashkenazi Jew, correct? They fled pogroms and anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe. Britain has always used these communities as tools, more puppets like the kings. They had the Jews also on strings, the same way it did with Scottish settlers in Ireland or the Boers in South Africa. It's not about blaming Ukrainian or Jewish people. It's about understanding how Eastern European elite alliances worked and were absorbed into the Western imperial project. After World War II, Britain handed Palestine to the UN, a newly formed American body that laid the foundation for Israeli militarization. The US is Israel's primary funder. The arms dealers get their money back, and they create a diplomatic shield for Israel. The US and the UK use Israel to control regional oil and strategic trade routes. It helps them contain any Arab unity and monitor pan-African or pan-Islamic movements, resistance movements. That's why they're so big on surveillance tech. The Americans are funding the development of advanced militarized technology. They test it on Palestinians, but it won't be long before it's used on its own people, I suspect. Israelis are training the US Police Department on facial recognition, and they are a keystone supplier into the Western Imperial Project. It's a testing ground, it's a buffer, and it's a justification for endless military spending. Zionism is not Judaism. Zionism is a modern nationalist ideological project, a capitalist project that emerged in the late 1800s. It was backed by the spider's web. The same fucking families that enclosed all of Britain. The Balfour Declaration, come on, like the Rothschild, it was written to the Rothschild. That's their justification for any of this, as a letter somebody wrote to Mr. Rothschild. What the fuck? The empire has deliberately conflated the two to keep you hating the Jew. It makes any criticism of Israel go away because you are just an anti-Semite. Thankfully, it seems like that veil has lifted because there's no defense for what they're doing. And using Jewish people as a cover for genocide after what they did to them in World War II, how can you not see it? That's the anti-Semitism. Jewish grief has been weaponized. They displaced one oppressed people into the homeland of another and created a permanent conflict.